The way this thing's designed, there's always a little space in the front of my videos on every single one of them. So I guess I'm just going to have to get used to that. So I was having a conversation about Utopia. And, what is Utopia? What is perfection? Perfection is subjective to the human being. What's perfection for me may not be perfection for you. But if we were to determine that we had a perfection that was, universal, say, a world where everyone was fed, everyone was healthy, everyone lived long lives, where they didn't need to starve or they didn't lack for anything. They didn't have health problems. They were genetically, homogenized into not having disease. Then what would drive the human nature to do anything? Would this not basically break down into a bunch of slovenly people that do nothing? What would there be left if everything was perfection, if there was no need, want, or desire for anything? What would be the purpose or the drive behind the human psyche to do anything, to create anything, to strive to be a better society if it was already at its peak, or what was determined to be a peak? We spoke about genetic engineering, and my thoughts on it are that, yes, it would be nice to remove some corrupted genes from the genome, like breast cancer, or testicular cancer, or, really bad sickle cell anemia, things like that, diabetes, things like that that are predestined in the human genome to cause problems. But to genetically modify children to be, for instance, the perfect genius child, where you could order the attributes that you wanted, I think that would become dangerous. Because after a while, you would have a society of people who were perfection in their genetics, and you would have a society of people who were natural, who occurred with whatever, were born with whatever they had genetically, naturally. And the people who were perfect would deem these people as plebes. And the people that were imperfect would be resentful for having to suffer through whatever it may be that they had. And it would create kind of a society similar to what we've got right now on a financial level, on a political level. You've got people who are wealthy and have a lot of power politically, who see us all as plebes, that see us all as lower life forms, to manipulate, to take advantage of, to brainwash, to control, to use to produce more money for them, to manipulate into keeping them in power. And we live with these people all the time. These people exist in our daily lives, not just the political, but people like bosses in businesses. I used to own a business, and I did not have employees. I did all the work myself. However, one of the reasons why I chose to become a business owner, self-employed, and do my own work for myself, was because there are business owners out there that are totally into greed of creating more money and wealth for themselves, and using and abusing the people that they pay to do the job that they can't do themselves. I had an instance with, I opened a cleaning business years ago, cleaned houses on beautiful resort islands and in nice neighborhoods. And I did it all by myself, for myself. But I worked for a company for a short period of time, and that company that I worked for, the owner of that company, hired people. She and her 2 girlfriends that were, permanent in the business, they would hire people, and they'd go in a house, and they would steal stuff and then blame it on the new hiree, and then fire the person and claim the insurance claim or whatever it was they were doing. They were pulling some sort of scam. Basically, if they got caught stealing from the customer, they'd blame it on an employee that just left. And then they would try to take it out of the employee's last paycheck and basically screw the employee over. And it would kind of depend on the person, who was stolen from, whether they tried to sue the employee that was hired to be the scapegoat. I was almost one of those scapegoats, and I caught them. I overheard the conversation about how they were taking this and that, and they just blame it on me. And when I went to my boss and told her, she fired me. And she took my last paycheck. And I tried to get my last paycheck, and I could not, no matter what I did. I even went to the local, wasn't a union employee, but I went to, local employment protection services or whatever at the time in my county, and they laughed at me and told me that they couldn't do anything about it unless it was on the records of the company that I worked for. They didn't owe me anything, and it wasn't on the records. So power corrupts, and superiority can corrupt. Perfecting the human genome in a utopian manner to create a utopian society can corrupt before it even becomes a utopian society. And that was the argument that I was having with my friend. We have some really interesting, deep conversations. In any case, I was thinking about various things in that genre, and we as a people, we need to do some work on our society. We need to figure out how to fix some of these problems. I'm not looking for a utopia, but I know that we really have a lot of issues that we have to fix. And we need to be able to talk to each other, and we're being censored from doing so. So I think that it is purposeful, because those in power do not want these things fixed. They work well for them. Rules for me and different rules for thee. And that's their way of doing things. And, I think it's a pretty disastrous and sick society that we live in that's like that. And we need to be very cautious, but we need to be very adamant on the fact that we are going to change it. That we cannot allow this to stand. And that we need to build not a utopia, but a world that is better for everyone, and not just better for a few. And I don't want it to turn into a socialist world, because if you listen to those who are the few, they play on these ideals, these thoughts for better worlds, for utopian worlds, for utopian societies. And they make you believe they're a line of garbage. They manipulate data and information to put it out in front of you on the mainstream media news and in movies and TV and music to make you think that these dreams that we all have of having no people who are homeless, no people who are sick or taken advantage of by pharmaceutical companies, or, have problems with work or can't feed themselves, or wind up having, children that are taken, or any of these things that can happen, can be solved by listening to these politicians and by doing these programs, when really, if you examine the programs, they all have mechanisms that are kicking money back and power back to these people. They're manipulating and using our heartstrings and our souls and our desires for a better world, and they're taking it and they're using it to manipulate us into giving them power. And my dogs don't agree. But tell me below in the comments what you think about that. Let me know. Please subscribe, share, and you have a great day.